Roll call.
Parker. Here. Miscelinich.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Zittergruen. Here. Jizzle. Here. Whittle.
Here.
Neal.
Here.
We have anybody who wants to speak during the public comment time? Come up, state your name and your address, please.
Denise Lana, 604 Center Avenue. I've been a member of the Strong Towns website and their community for a number of years, and since moving here to Decorah in 2020, I have seen how Decorah has grown, and I vetted for 10 years before we moved here where my husband and I were going to retire, and Decorah was the community that had already won out before we landed our little Honda Odyssey on Center Avenue. And since landing here and in the 5 years since, I've even seen so much growth in the community and have been embraced by this town that I've always joked with Travis that I'm like, every year I would say I'm going to enter Decorah in the Strongest Towns contest that they do every year, and I just would always feel a little timid to do it. And this year, last minute, I had like 6 hours until the deadline last Sunday, and I sat down and I just wrote from the cuff and did it. I don't even know what I wrote, and we made the top 16 across the United States for the Strongest Towns. But it's a vote only contest. We don't win any monetary thing, but I think that more than anything, it's something that I believe in, that that it shows what our community is and who we are and what we want to be. And it's a vote for over the next 5 weeks. We get to judge one time a week anybody. There's things on the website that you'll honestly get to see what I wrote. I cannot be held responsible, even though I write for the newspaper. I don't even know. My apologies. But it was about finances, about how we're bettering our streets and trying to connect our community physically and spiritually and everything, about how we're trying to be more transparent and just coming together. It was a number of things, and I wanted to just reach out to every one of you. And I don't know if you've always lived here, then maybe, I guess you've always been blessed to have been born in a place that was this awesome, that it took my husband and I 10 years of vetting all over the United States. And I come from around Asheville and the coast of North Carolina, where people want to move, and you couldn't pay me to live there, because this is where we chose that if something were to happen to us tomorrow, that you guys are going to raise our children. This is where we chose to die and have you guys take care of us. And so this is no better place on earth. And if I can just ask you guys, I know I passed these around, that if you guys can go to the Strongest Towns website and just vote. I loaded up pictures, and I think that I tried to do a representation of the wastewater treatment plant. And Steve, you're there with the eating lutefisk, and Emily, you're there talking about the MEU, and you're there talking about planning out. I try to include what everybody does, how everybody has a part in something.
That's not 3 minute timer.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I know I'm from the South, I can talk a long time.
I'm checking.
But if I did pass it around. I don't know, I'm gonna talk with Carrie to see if there's a way that we can put it on Facebook to try to get it out there. That even if we don't win, I know it's awesome anyway, but if we can get it out, I'll try to see if I can get Travis to preach it too. But if you can just pass it around, that we can get as many people to vote, that it counts. Even I know whatever we can.
Okay.
I did it.
Hey, thank you very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate your efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Denise, for putting us in. We know what a great place we live in. It's about time everybody else understands that too, so, yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, city manager, department head, and council reports. Start with the city manager.
All right, we'll try and keep this brief. A couple things I want to touch base on. One, do a quick legislative update, lot of bills actually that I'm paying attention to, but a couple I think bring up in this forum. First, which as it relates to tonight's discussion, Senate Study Bill 1181 would prohibit the collection of franchise fees. So Senate Study Bill 1181 would make effective July 1, 2025. Cities and counties can still have franchise agreements for uses within the right-of-way. However, we would be prohibited from collecting any franchise fees off of them. So know that that is pending legislation on the Senate side, nothing on the House file, or House side as of yet. House File 600, again, this is in the House side, no match on the Senate. It's another piece of property tax limitations. This is now the second property tax bill that we've seen. I will say the authors of these two bills aren't ones that are that we would expect to see the final property tax bill come from. So I don't know that these are going to be front runners, but there are concepts within it that we could very much see come into further pieces drafted. So 600, HF 600 would cap the growth of a levy. Now, the levy, different than dollar amount, would cap the levy to no more than 2% of the previous 5-year average, unless it would allow for one-off increases beyond 2% more than the 5-year preceding average, but that would require a vote of 60% of the public in order to do that. I don't know how that timeline works in reality. I don't know how you actually implement any growth or any levy rate proposed that's more than 2% of the 5-year preceding average. You can't conduct an election to fast enough within our budgeting window. So I don't know that that's going to be a real piece in the future. House File 617, this.
Can I ask a question about that one? 600? The one you were just talking about?
The property tax, yeah.
Just because I do think that it's important, if people are listening, that they understand. This election has brought up a lot about taxes, right? So that I'm understanding that bill, the essence is that a town is limited in their economic growth, right, to 2%. So even if we invested a whole bunch, brought a whole bunch of new business to Decorah, we would still be limited in the levy that we could garnish?
So this one focuses on the levy, and I really try and I didn't want to go into a big.
But that's what I mean. Like it focus on the actual rate.
Focuses on the actual rate,
yeah.
Which for Decorah, I believe my first year or two here, we saw a steep increase because Locust Road repayment came online strong, and then we've plateaued and actually have come down since then. So if you are a community that is trending fairly stable, which is a goal of most cities, is try and maintain that levy rate fairly stable, or in our situation where we are coming down off of a pretty high spike from that debt limit or that debt that we're repaying, if you're coming down or staying steady, you're okay based on this legislation. But if you're a Charles City, I'm going to say, and please, I apologize for anyone listening from Charles City, but I know that community saw its assessed valuation drop 2 years in a row. So that, even holding the same dollar amount, forces all your levies up. And so for a community that's either struggling to see any growth or is lowering their valuations, they're going to have a hard time with that levy rate.
So in a recession, this would really hurt us.
Correct. Yeah, if the bottom of the housing market fell out again and everybody's values dropped tremendously and that impacted our assessed valuations, that would really hurt.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. 617, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. We've talked about urban renewal areas in TIF, especially with residential most recently, the Mike Kelly proposal with High Point East number 4. As I pointed out, even with a 10-year, 100% rebate back to cover costs of the infrastructures, even if he built out all of the homes at the estimated value he believes they'll bring, he still would fall short of a rebate back for the cost of the infrastructure, because the way TIF works is you have to first residential rollback, right? So you're not taxed at the full assessed valuation of the home. And then secondly, there's this component, which 617 looks to change. Right now, there's a TIF LMI set aside that we've talked about that historically has been as high as 40% for Decorah. That means after the rollback's applied, then the tax dollars that are paid, 40% of that has to immediately be taken and put to the side for this LMI set aside. And that cannot be used as a rebate back to the developer. It has to be used for a different project that's beneficial to those of low moderate income in the community. This bill would lower that to 20% static. So for most communities, that's going to be a benefit. Where I say it's a double edge, as others would advocate, well, those LMI funds were established there for a reason, to ensure that aside from new homes being constructed, new apartments being constructed, it would of course allow for additional economic incentives to disadvantaged communities. So that's another one. That's what I would view as a positive. It allows for greater flexibility. And then the last one, I don't believe I was able to report on this at the last meeting. Maybe I did. House Study Bill 187, which was introduced, I believe, 2 weeks ago today, would require participation by all local law enforcement entities across the state of Iowa to have a written memorandum of agreement with U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, so ICE. I don't know what that written memorandum of agreement looks like, but we're largely being told it would require basically complying with, not basically, in the proposed bill, it does include the U.S. federal code language under immigration law. But as far as what details are in that MOA, no clue. But we'd be required by state law to enter into one.
So this would essentially be the federalizing of our state and local public safety officers?
In a sense, yeah.
In that instance.
Yeah.
That's both sheriff and PD.
Correct. All local law enforcement agencies. Those are the 4 I wanted to hit on. Again, anybody that's interested, I've got a number that I can share that we're keeping an eye on for cities and potential impacts to Decorah. But I want to move on to the property tax levy hearing notice that's in the consent agenda for council today. This is through months of council budget work sessions. And as we all know, it is proposing that the levy rate would decrease nearly 10 cents. But the notice that council's about to consider tonight, it doesn't read that way. So the resolution would set a public hearing for April 7th at 5 o'clock, where every property tax paying entity, person within the county is going to get this notice that says what the city's proposed tax rate is going to be, what the county's proposed tax rate is going to be, and the school's proposed tax rate. This notice implies that we as the city of Decorah are increasing property taxes by 11.94% for residential that had an assessed valuation of $100,000 for fiscal '25. And that we are increasing 13.28% for commercial valued at $300,000 for fiscal '25 assessed value. This notice assumes that each that each classification saw a 10% growth in individual values. This is not what actually happened in Decorah. I want to be clear about this. Decorah saw residential assessed valuation increase by 1.77% as a class. So that means new residential construction or additions to homes, all of that is part of that 1.77%. That doesn't mean your individual property saw its value increase by 1.77%. Decorah saw commercial assessed valuations increase by 2.05%, again as a class, from that new construction additions, not each individual property. This notice is a terrible misrepresentation of how property taxes work and is not at all accurate information that's going to help educate the taxpayer. End of soapbox. Nope, I lied. So I pointed this out last year and I said, everyone will remember this, I'm sure. Last year, a $100,000 residential assessed valuation saw their property tax rate drop by 15.8%. In this year, the proposed increase is 1.68%. So I'm sure everyone's remembering that residential impact last year, that big drop, this is only making up a tiny portion of that. Now I'm off my soapbox.
Do you think we could, do you think you could write a layperson's friendly press release to accompany that? That we could issue when these go out?
Yeah.
Is this something that has to be sent out, or are they being forced to send this out?
Yep, this is required by state law now that if council approves this, hopefully you approve it because it's due to the county by Wednesday at 4. And the county auditor then compiles ours, the county's rates, the schools, puts them in this form letter. This is a form notice that goes out to everyone across the state of Iowa. And everyone will receive this directly by mail by March 20th. Has to be sent out by the 15th, so you should see it by the 20th.
Do you make this form letter? Like you fill in all the stuff? Can we add something to the form letter?
Yes, so we can add the reason why.
Why we should add to the form letter and put it in layperson and explain what the levy rate is compared to the levy rate last year. I mean, literally make a cover letter. If we're going to spend, the money's already there to communicate with residents. We have a unique opportunity to be able to do that.
The goal was to get with Carrie today, and I actually said to her this morning, I kind of want to formulate a rather sassy, we'll call it, response as to rationale why. Because as part of this notice, we as the city have to identify why we are not levying the same raw tax dollars as we did last year. So, I mean, aside from, property insurance has finally leveled off a bit, but historically that's increased 40% by last year. I think it was nearly 40% the year before. So it's finally plateaued hopefully for a bit for us. But nothing costs the same as it did last year. So to say that the benchmark is zero increase and you have to explain why you're increasing even $1 more than last year is ludicrous.
Yeah, but in that same letter, we could put the levy rate. I mean, because when I talk to people and people are like, my taxes are going up, and I say, yeah, but your levy rate per thousand is going down. That people understand that, and that your house is worth more.
Well, and what I would encourage people to do, and I tell everyone this when they give me that same argument, is it your taxes that are going up, or are you saying your mortgage payment's going up? Because if you're like many people, your taxes are paid through your escrow account with the bank. And I know my home insurance rate just jumped dramatically, causing my mortgage payment to go up considerably. It wasn't my property taxes.
Sure, but regardless, I do think without the SAS, we should write a letter to include in the letter that everyone's getting.
I see Darren online, and obviously I can see Denise and Alex right here, so I would love to do a one-on-one with all of you.
Yeah.
Just maybe not until after tomorrow.
Well, it'll be after tomorrow. Yes.
Okay.
That's it.
I so appreciate you attending the Iowa League Day tomorrow at the court, at the State House. It's extremely important, and I know that you've been very active in that, and you've contacted the appropriate representatives that we're having issues with, but I really appreciate you making that move and having to maybe go tonight and then, represent us, but thank you very much.
Yep, not a problem. A lot of this stuff can be eased with simple education.
Quick question. Is 5 o'clock the right time?
Yes, so that was also a law change where this hearing has to be the only item on that council agenda. It can be the same day, and so we go 5 o'clock for this meeting. We all sit here, we stare blankly at a room. Maybe somebody will come and join us.
I remember doing that.
And then 45 minutes later, we start the regular meeting.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
anything from Carrie? Any comments or anything from Mark?
All right, so had some exciting news on Friday. The ball field and pickleball court was one of 15 projects statewide to be awarded the IDOL's Water Quality Initiative Urban Conservation Grant as a part of that. And we requested $377,000. We're awarded that amount. So that's really good news.
Woohoo!
And it was definitely a collaboration with ISG. They provide a lot of technical assistance on this, and 13 letters of support across different agencies and organizations. And we're definitely looking forward to the next steps. There's some logistics for next steps, but excited to partner on this important component of the project, and it'll be about 3 acres of infiltration basin and about 5 acres of native plantings. So that will really help store and filter the water going into the upper Iowa River and provide habitat, a great learning opportunity as well. So very excited for that. And just as a summary, the 3 components are infiltration basin and pretreatment, native planting mix, and outreach and education. So.
What was the
wanted
total
to
acreage
share
again,
that.
Mark? What was the acreage again?
So it's about 3 acres of infiltration basin. There's some sediment forebays and some swales, and then about 5 acres of native plantings in that area.
Congratulations.
Great job,
news.
staff. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Any other staff person have any comments? Okay, council reports. Brent?
I don't really have anything to report. I do kind of want to do a quick shout out for the Decorah Police Department, specifically Nick Yaniff and his canine. Seen just recently that an individual ran into Luther College and fled from his vehicle, and that is a scary situation to have somebody loose in a college. And our canine tracked him down and did find him, so that's kudos to the canine and canine handler. And I do know that they work well together, and a lot of training's involved with that. And yeah, so just a shout out to them.
Thank you. Christopher?
Nothing tonight.
Kirsten?
Couple things. Oneonta Film Festival is coming up this week. It starts Thursday night, it runs through Sunday. All the films that they show are free. I think it's one of the coolest things that Decorah does. If you make it to any of the films and go down there and partake in it, please feel free to give donations to it. That's how it keeps going every year, year after year. Like I said, a lot of these films you may never have heard of, but most of them are really, really outstanding. So please support the Oneonta Film Festival this week. One other thing, keeping with Travis's look at what the state legislature is up to, I was recently reading about House File 274 and State File 235, which would repeal obscenity exemptions for libraries and educational institutions. I think this is a scary road that they may consider going down. I would hate to see the library here have to go through all their books and start pulling books out. I know my wife and I frequent Barnes and Nobles. I know a few years back they used to have one table that they designated to ban books that other states and places had banned. I think they're up to like 4 tables now at this point in time. And there's such books as like To Kill a Mockingbird, The Color Purple, 1984 by George Orwell, Grapes of Wrath, Of Mice and Men. These were classic books that I read as a kid that kind of framed your perspective on life, and to see these type of books get banned at our state level, I think would be very sad. So if you think the same way, please call your state representative and state senators and let them know that this bill does not need to be passed in Iowa. Thanks.
Steve?
Thanks, Mayor. I'll start by doing one for Christopher. SMID is Wednesday, is that right?
Correct,
At
yeah.
7:30 a.m. And that's here, is that how that works?
Yeah.
So Christopher is our representative. If you have things to talk about, give him a shout. At the Oneota Film Festival, there are films that look at the history and use of the Black Hawk Bridge in Lansing. Also a film that explores the life and work of Charlie Langton, who's a local cause celebrity and photographer of distinction. So there's something for everyone, truly, and it's as easy as showing up. You can Google Oneota Film Festival, pick anything that looks interesting to you, and just show up. There's no hard registration. There's not a lot of hoops to jump through, and it's really a unique and wonderful thing we do as a community. So hats off to everyone who makes it happen. I want to also give a shout out to everyone involved in the water quality improvement program and the dry run watershed. That's neat to see brought to completion, and it represents a lot of hard work from staff in our public works and engineering, and I think even our Parks and Rec was involved a little bit last year. A tremendous amount of work that will pay generational dividends in terms of our local watershed health, and it happened because of good, competent, hardworking local government, and it wouldn't have happened without that. So I'm proud of it. I'm proud that our team pulled that off, and kudos to all of you. I know that kudos is what Ross Hadley used to say, but he's gone now. And then finally, thanks to Denise for signing us up in the Strong Towns Greatest Community, Strongest Town contest. I've been a member of Strong Towns for quite a few years, and an enthusiast as well. I'm sure that's not a surprise to many here. I'm excited about the chance that this will spark some conversations about both how Decorah already is a strong town and how we can continue to grow to be an even stronger community. So thank you very much for doing that work.
Randy?
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Cody?
Yeah, I see the fire department is here on the screen tonight. I just want to give them a shout out. I had a really great tour on Friday and got to meet several of the department firemen, and had a really great conversation, and had some laughs, and got a great tour of the facility, and good appreciation for what these fellas do for our city and surrounding area, and I just want to thank them for the tour and for the work that they do. So kudos to the fire guys. I also want to echo Kristen's sentiment on the library and thank him for bringing that up, because that's something I'm also concerned about, and I know a lot of people in this town are concerned about that, so thank him for that. I want to speak on behalf of friends and people that I know who may be negatively impacted from different bills that have gone through, that have passed, in terms of civil rights and negative impact it may have on LGBTQ friends that I have, people that I know. Speaking as a straight male, I don't think that there's enough advocacy for these folks coming from people like myself, and I just would like to state that that they're people that should be respected and appreciated, and it's sad to see these bills go through. So I just want to speak on behalf. I know it's a maybe a difficult thing for people to wrap their brains around, but I know that trans people they just want to live their lives, and the ones that I know are just some of the best people that I know. So I just want to speak on behalf of them and for them, and know that I appreciate them. And that's it.
Emily?
Well, I'm going to echo everyone who spoke out on all the issues. But I guess I will be the one to bring up the fact that there is an election tomorrow. So hopefully everyone knows by now that tomorrow Decorah will have an opportunity to go to the polls to vote for a municipal electric utility. And no matter how you choose to vote, it is important, right? Voting is the chance you have to have your voice heard. And so we'll be talking a little bit more about that tonight. So I will keep those comments to that point on the agenda. I do want to give a shout out to the HVAC equipment for reminding us that there is something going on up here that we should address. I don't know if you guys can hear the noise,
I wondered where it was coming.
but there is a large buzzing ahead.
That's the air conditioner battling the heat.
Yeah, so big shout out. Yes, we know you need attention. And I also want to draw attention to legislative bills. We could all sit up here and talk about the things that we care about and how they are drastically changing in our state. And I would like to say to people in Decorah that now more than ever your voice is important. And even though sometimes it feels like your head is banging against a wall, we do need our legislatures to focus on the things that really do bring economic development to Iowa, that focus on our failing infrastructure, that focus on our healthcare and all of the things that rural Iowa needs right now. And it feels instead like they're focusing on the social issues that divide us. That is extremely frustrating as a person in government. So tonight I just wanted to remind people that there is a difference between small government and big government. I consider us up here to be small government. You know our emails, you know our addresses, you know where we live. We pay the same taxes as you. We pay the same water rates as you. We live among you. We share in all of the good things that happen in Decorah and all of the bad. And so as we get angry at government or get happy at government or whatever we do with our government, I hope that people see your local city government as your advocate and feel comfortable talking and reaching out to us and coming to our budget sessions. Voting, Oneida Film Festival. Everyone said all the projects, so that's great. I think I'm good.
Okay. Consent agenda. Good luck with the reading.
What's that?
Good luck with the reading. It's
Oh. Item A, minutes of the February 17th, 2025 meeting. B, claims. C, renewal Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor service, Lefsa Trolls. D, renewal Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor service, Don Jose Mexican Restaurant. E, renewal special Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor service, Vesterheim Museum. F, change order number 1, rectifying quantities for the Decorah 2024 Dry Run Creek Wetlands Project. G, pay application number 4, final for the Decorah 2024 Dry Run Creek Wetlands Project. H, resolution accepting the Decorah 2024 Dry Run Creek Wetlands Project as complete. I, resolution setting public hearing for proposed property tax levy for fiscal year 2026 budget. J, resolution setting date for public hearing on designation of the expanded 2022 Business Park Urban Renewal Area and on Urban Renewal Plan Amendment. K, resolution accepting sidewalk easement for Rinco 2 LLC and Mill Street LLC. L, resolution approving integrated roadside vegetation management plan. And M, special event permit application for Live on Winnebago.
I'd move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
motion made, approved by Ms. Linich and seconded by Olson. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call?
Ms. Linich,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Chisel, Whittle,
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consider ordinance amending chapter 2.16, police residency, first reading. Give the background on that, please.
Yeah. At the February 17th meeting, council discussed that the state of Iowa allows police officers to reside outside the state if their city has an ordinance adopted that allows it. Consensus of the council appeared to be allowing residency in Minnesota, but still want to have the ability to establish a response time. The proposed ordinance does just that, allows out-of-state residency, but still states that the police department may adopt policies with response time requirements.
I'd move for the first reading.
Second.
Motion made by Chisholm, seconded by Olson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call?
Chisholm?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Miscellaneous?
Aye.
Zittergrund?
Aye.
Whittle?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Motion carried for the first reading. Consider resolution limiting the funding sources towards a potential municipal electric utility. Can you give background on that, please?
Sure. So I had council members reach out requesting a resolution be drafted for this agenda that stated if the March 4th, 2025 special election, Measure E, were to pass to create a municipal electric utility, that it would state that no existing property tax dollars would be allocated. So the proposed resolution states that the council will only use electric franchise fee revenues or general obligation bonds after a bond referendum is passed for the furtherance of municipal electric utility should that measure pass. Now, I did point out in the city manager report, I was made aware of that bill after this agenda item was requested and background notes were already being made actually. So I will point out there is that Senate study bill out there that is proposing removing the city's ability to collect franchise fees. Make council aware that that would certainly be a further inhibitor if this resolution is adopted and it only allows for those or general obligation bonds after a referendum.
You tell me the two council people that requested this be on the agenda,
I did.
please.
I mean, I'll tell.
Yeah.
Well, I
Neil-
usually
Neil was-
ask, so,
Oh, yeah.
Neil was my first, Parker
Okay.
was my second.
okay. I had some questions about it. The two questions I had was I don't remember working with something where the outcome was, we don't know the outcome for Tuesday. So I was a little concerned about that. I also felt that whether it was for one side or the other, that it could express advocacy for or against something. So I was a little surprised at having this on the agenda at this time.
I'm the one who brought it up and worked with Travis a little bit, and I think so. I think I can explain some of it. As many of you know, I have been very much an outspoken voice for this in the community, and in that have probably heard more from our community on this issue. I feel like it now has surpassed scooters in terms of how much I've heard from our community. And I think that so many residents were asking, can you assure me my tax dollars won't go up? Can you assure me my tax dollars won't go up? And as I was thinking about the ways in which we could fund this initiative and the appetite that we have, we know that obligation bonds at a certain threshold can create a community obligation, a referendum. People can vote on it. We also know we can call a referendum at any time. But there was assurances that people wanted to know that, like, are my taxes going to go up as a result of this? And I have felt confident in my entire time thinking about this issue that this is something we can achieve quite easily without raising taxes. The way I see it is that we have options of grants, we have options of donations, and we have electric franchise fees, which quite honestly are about ways in which to better the infrastructure utility systems that we have. And so to me, the electric franchise fees make a lot of sense for this. And so I put it on the agenda because I think people were asking, how does this get funded? We're very confused about this. And we are talking, there's two points at this juncture when we talk about an MEU. The point at which we get to the utility board and the utility board says, yes, you can establish an MEU. That is of course the burden on the city, right? The city would have to We have to come up with funding for a feasibility study, a business plan, the legal fees in order to entertain this. And that is why it's a municipal election. And so, yes, I understand why people are like, oh, I don't want my tax dollars to go up on that. But we do things all the time, really cool things that don't involve raising taxes. We get grants, like our $370,000 grant we just got. I might be wrong on the number, right? The last time we did a feasibility study, that was $67,000. Mostly that was also paid by an outside grant. And so I just wanted to say, all right, well, if people are concerned about that, let's just limit ourselves and say, if we're going to have to use tax dollars in order to get this initiative done, then let's say we'll put it to a vote. And if people want to use tax dollars at that point, they can. I think people forget that the endeavor to learn about an MEU is honestly an endeavor to save us money. It isn't about increasing spending, but decreasing it, and taking what we already spend and bettering our infrastructure, infusing our local economy with things that save us all money and help us achieve the priorities that we have as a community. So I guess this wasn't some kind of for or against. This was a literally like, fellow council members, do you agree with me that if we're going to raise taxes, we should bring it to a vote? And if we're going to use city money, we're going to use the electric franchise fee dollars that, quite honestly, Mayor, when we put the franchise fee on, you said this would be a great thing for investigating an MEU. You said these dollars would be great for investigating an MEU, and I agree with you. Obviously, we didn't know when this happened that the state might limit electric franchise fee dollars. It is a resolution. Certainly, it is something that councils down the road can change. We can change if the laws change in what we do. But at this point in time, with all the ways in which the laws stand, I feel really confident in saying that we would fund this without having an impact on current property taxes. So.
I'll reply, but I'm going to wait to hear.
Sure.
Yeah, Brent can be the other one.
Yeah, so Emily contacted me about this topic, and she kind of essentially gave me the same spiels that you just all heard. And regardless of what happens tomorrow, yeah, I think it's a good thing. If it doesn't pass tomorrow, it's a moot point. If it doesn't pass tomorrow, then we can't say change our minds on that. Then we can't say, okay, we have a passing resolution, so maybe we're going to do something different. We're kind of just setting the stage prior to, like, hey, if this does pass, this is what's going to happen. And I'm definitely for not raising people's taxes. That's kind of been, a concern with a lot of this, with the MEU type situation, and a concern, I think, for a lot of people. And so I think, stating that, I think is a good thing, and having a resolution and standing together saying, hey, this is what's going to happen if this passes, I think is good. And I think it's good to do it prior to, so we're kind of locked into that.
Next.
I guess I've gone back and forth on this one a little bit. I'm inclined to believe that it's a little bit of putting the cart before the horse, since we haven't had the election yet. We haven't had the citizens weigh in on their voice on this thing. So I'm not sure I'm in favor of voting on this prior to having the election. I think if we had wanted to include something like this, from a city standpoint, we should have done this maybe back at the beginning of this thing, maybe back in December when we provided the informational stuff that we put out to people. I think coming in at the last minute, at the 11th hour, to do something like this, I think looks a little shady, and we've certainly don't like some of the things that Alliant has done with the information they provided, so I don't like the idea that we're coming at the last minute to do something similar to this. So I guess I'm opposed to having this go forward at this point in time. I think it's something we can review down the road and look at, and I think depending on what the vote turns out tomorrow.
I, along the lines, share much of the same sentiment as Kirsten. I am not opposed to the resolution, definitely open to revisiting it further down the road. My biggest component too, and I know when you guys introduced this, you didn't have the comprehension, this franchise fee bill within the state legislature as a new, introduction. And we've seen the uncertainty that has been coming out of the Iowa legislature this last year in regards to things that they have been passing. So I just, that's my biggest thing too, is I just don't want to say this is the case. And I know we can come back and revisit. That's my thoughts on it.
I am with, I guess, Kao and Christopher in terms of wishing that we'd done this sooner. I think that it's a nice commitment to make to the community. I think we all know that whatever happens tomorrow, we have some work to do as a community to strengthen the ties we have between us and people who maybe don't agree with the way this has gone. We have work to do to strengthen trust, and to me, this resolution is an attempt to demonstrate to the community that they can trust us to do what I know that we'll do, which is act wisely and proceed cautiously if the public chooses to pass the referendum. That's what this resolution says to me, that if the public entrusts us with the responsibility of this utility, we won't be stupid. And specifically, we're not going to raise taxes. We're not going to spend an endless amount of money in pursuit of municipalization goal. That we're going to be measured, research-oriented, facts-based, and kind of thoughtful about how we proceed. I do trust the people sitting at this table to do that. But if we can put our statement behind it, or pass a resolution saying, we have a pretty hard limit on what we're willing to do, what roads we're willing to go down, I think that will reassure members of the community who right now are still debating between a no vote and a yes vote. If they know that their yes vote will not be interpreted by this council as a mandate to move forward at any cost, perhaps they can appreciate that the yes vote is a more attractive option. And so I think I plan to support this, even though I wish it had happened a bit sooner, because I do think that the community, whether this week or next week, I mean, even if this doesn't pass tonight, I think we ought to take it up next week if this passes, because or if the referendum tomorrow passes, because I think I'd like to assure the community as soon as possible that we're not going to raise taxes in pursuit of a municipal electric utility. I think that's important work that we could do to move the conversation past tomorrow. Whether that happens tonight or next week or in 2 weeks, I'm fine with that. And I guess the last thing that I'll say before I get quiet and vote yes eventually is a reminder also that if we pass this resolution, we're not establishing a minimum that we're willing to do, we're establishing a maximum, and that those are two different things. I'm not making a commitment to do what this resolution permits us to do. I'm simply saying that this is the most that this council would entertain. Does that make sense? That we're not saying we will do this even. We're simply saying this is the most that we would do. And I think it's good leadership to demonstrate to undecided voters we are not going to take a yes vote as a unlimited mandate to spend money.
Randy?
Well, I'm along the lines of Kirsten and Christopher also. Also, I didn't see any language in there that protected the replacement of the local option sales tax that goes to the street department. So without written assurances, I would definitely vote against this because we can't afford to lose that money.
Cody?
I think it offers two reassurances to voters that I've heard from about the risk of their concerns about raising taxes. I think stating that we wouldn't raise taxes would be taken well by the citizens, and also giving them an opportunity to vote if more money was required for the process, I think would set people's mind at ease, just that it's not gonna go past a certain point without the public having a say in further actions. So I appreciate it.
I'm going to make a motion that we pass resolution without number, that the city should be resolved. That, do I have to read the whole thing? Can I just say pass this resolution?
If it's as drafted, then yeah.
Pass resolution as drafted. Thank you.
Second.
Quick question for those that.
Just a minute.
Oh, go ahead.
Motion made by Neal, seconded by Zittergrun. Discussion.
Quick question for those that are voting yes on this. Are you saying then that if the electric franchise fee bill goes through, that the only way you're willing to spend any funds to pursue this effort, if it should pass tomorrow, would be through general obligation bonds?
No, I think we'd
that's
have to,
what
I think we'd have to rethink the resolution, honestly. I mean, if we would have to rethink, if, let's be honest, if they change the electric franchise fee bill, we have to rethink a lot of funding. We have to rethink our Black Hills Energy franchise fee, so the ways in which we fund sidewalks. We'll have to reframe our street funding. So we'll be looking at funding in a lot of different ways. So I guess it's a resolution. I do understand that the state could take away electric franchise fees, and that changes things dramatically for the landscape of the city. So in doing that, we might have to dramatically change how we do this. But I am being honest, I am not comfortable raising taxes in order to do this MEU. I just am not, and I never have been. And I think to people's points, why is it coming up now? Because it has come to my attention how trepidatious people are about trusting government, and I understand it. And I think that, Steve, you spoke really eloquently, and I thank you for that. That it's just important in the time we live in to reassure people that I am not up here trying to raise people's taxes. And right now, people get a postcard every day that says that your city council is going to raise your taxes, upward of $85 million or whatever they want to write on the back of a postcard. And I guess I just wanted to counter a narrative that we're a bunch of tax and spend liberals, because we're not. And that's frustrating. And so to me, this piece of paper says, look, as the laws stand right now, we have a source of funding that makes sense for this. If the state takes away that source of funding that makes sense for it, then we have to rethink it. But that's where I stand. So I'm fine with this today. Anything could change tomorrow, quite honestly. They could take away our ability to levy property taxes, right? They could take away one of the bills they could take away is the sales tax.
It's all right.
Right? If they take away the 1% local option sales tax, period, then we're thinking about how do we fund anything. So there's a lot of changes, and I'm not willing to let the state take away good government from me at this point.
Just one question is, I think that the sustainability group that's done the educating throughout have done an excellent job. My question would probably be did they have questions like this during that time, and were they answered in the fashion that you have just stated, so that they actually have been made aware when anybody's talked to them where that would have come from? That would be one of my questions. I mean, our
educational materials made it clear that we have this tool. We could issue obligation bonds. Okay. And I think people are scared that we would issue obligation bonds without a vote. As I said, I have talked about this issue. I've had open forums. I understand. And I just feel like, and I appreciate, yes, in some ways I wish we had done this a month ago, but I have no doubt in my mind that if we had done this a month ago, Alliant Energy would have found a way to figure out how it was that we were going to spend millions of dollars of taxpayer money in some other avenue. I mean, so yeah, I guess this is part the vote tomorrow, but also just the part about that we're sensitive to taxes. So
I think, I'll just, obviously, people know I don't have a vote, but I am a bit concerned about having such a vote prior to what the results are. I feel it would be more important right away after, if there's a positive vote, after the thing to be covering it. That's where my concern has come in.
Yeah, I guess to me, this is just a tool of information that voters will have tomorrow. And if we do it afterwards, they don't have that tool, right?
See-
If voters go to the vote box tomorrow knowing that my taxes are only gonna get raised if I vote yes again with a 60% majority, that's a tool they have. And this is just one more tool that we're giving them, and a commitment on our part that we'll use electric franchise fee dollars, not tax dollars.
Because I mean, I really see it as an advocacy for the MU when we're supposed to be pretty even, not stating something. We have really pretty much just done with the educational piece.
This isn't an advocacy. This isn't telling people how to vote. This is giving them information about the vote they have tomorrow. This is telling them, if you vote yes, you can be confident your council has just committed to not raising your taxes to do it.
Will the 2% going to the street department be protected? Or is that going away by this resolution?
The resolution says electric franchise fees.
So that takes their funding away.
It doesn't take their funding away. As Steve said, this is not a max. This is just an option.
Yeah, I mean, Randy, that's a salient point, and I think it's a good line of inquiry. You know, again, we're sitting here talking about hypotheticals, what we're going to do if a vote passes. That's what makes this a confusing conversation. And I appreciate the mayor's concerns with that as well. I do think that, you know, we could look at this resolution and you know, talk about hypotheticals. Would you vote to take money away from streets to make this happen or whatever? I feel like that's not a great road to go down. In this resolution, it establishes a hard cap on what we would do, and that's it. Now, personally, if you ask me, I think our streets are probably underfunded right now, and so I'm not looking to go hunting for those franchise fees to be diverted, and I'd push hard to find a different way if that matter came before the council. But again, we're talking about something in a month. To Kristen's point, you know, he was asking whether it Kristen, you had a question, and I wanted to respond to it. Now I've just my brain is failing me.
Mine is as well.
That's fine. I'm having a senior moment.
All right.
You can.
Me as well.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm trying to think what the question was at this point in time.
You don't have to bail me out.
Okay.
All right, that's fine.
All right.
If I figure
might
out later.
try and bail
Oh, please,
bail you
Travis,
out.
All right.
if
Bail
I
us
may.
both out.
I remember. now,
To several council members' point about this franchise fees. So in item 2 of now therefore be it resolved, it does specify that expenditures of electric franchise fee revenues shall require a subsequent affirmative vote by the city council of Decorah. So the council, should you want to spend any of those funds even as a result, would require a follow-up vote of this council as well.
I appreciate that, Travis. It's good clarification, and I think that's an important message to the community that, you know, this is, again, a maximum that we'd be willing to commit to, not sort of a plan. KO, I do remember what I was saying. Yeah, okay, good. I think that you need to make commitments and make plans based on the current laws and not what they may be in 3 months. So if the state government wants to change the law and we need to make a new plan, we'll do that in response to that change. I don't think it'd be wise for us to change our actions tonight because the government may change how franchise fees work in a few months. So personally, I want to assume that the law is going to be the law because that's the best we can do.
Okay, with all due respect, I'm just going to make one more comment, okay? That's sort of similar to, we don't know for sure what it's going to be like after tomorrow. Would there be any, and I kind of know what this is, would there be any appetite for tabling this till after the election so we know if it's a positive, then you go forth with that? That's just a question I had, which would require for you to vote the motion down and then vote whether to table it.
My only concern with any attempt to delay action on this is that I am concerned that people may, in bad faith, attempt to portray that as us refusing to commit to a maximum. When given the chance to commit to a spending cap, the council said not before the election, we're not going to do it. And so I personally think that we ought to act on this because I don't want people to take the wrong impression that that a vote against this or a vote to table it means we disagree with the substance. I don't. I think it's good substance.
Yeah, and I'd like to say too, I guess I'm probably gonna possibly disagree with a lot of people up here. I think people's minds are made up. I mean, dealing with people, I think people know if they're voting yes, if they're voting no. I think those casts are voted. To be quite honest with you, I think looking at this as we're trying to sway somebody to vote, I'm just taking an opportunity anytime I get to say, hey, we're not going to raise your property taxes. Anytime I can get a vote to say I'm not going to raise your property tax, I'm probably going to take it, regardless of what the situation is. So just kind of wanted to throw that out there for my opinion of, you know, why I kind of support this. And I get there's some concern, there may be some optics, and there's going to be people out there saying they're just trying to get people to vote from no to vote yes, and if that happens, I guess that happens. But me as a voter going in on election tomorrow would like to know as well of where this council stands on if I vote one way or the other, what's going to happen. And so, you know, I look at it that way as well, and seeing it as, okay, well, maybe there's a possibility here that, you know, we can make a statement and, you know, identify some of those troubling worries that are out there.
Any
I think a
further-
good thing.
Any further discussion?
I guess one last thing that I would say, we portrayed this as if this resolution were to pass, we're putting a cap on our spending. And I've heard several people that are talking about voting yes on this saying, if circumstances change down the road, we can change this resolution. So that tells me that we're not putting a cap on it because we're subjecting ourselves to be able to change this resolution down the road. So
I was saying.
Again, I see this as
that's-
putting the cart before the horse.
That's not fair, Kirsten. I was saying that if the laws of the state of Iowa change, then that is something that we would have to look at. If the council changes hands and they want to look at something, as any resolution, then they would look at it. But I was only making the statement that we would change it if the laws change. In the same way, you know, I think there's a law right now that says we might be able to create a utility ourselves, right? The laws change all the time. I appreciate Zittigren saying, we can't operate under what the state might do. We have to go with what we have right now. That was all I was saying. I am not someone who, you know, I do not want any doubt that somehow Neil is making this tonight and gonna lift it next week. That's ridiculous.
I wasn't pointing the finger at you. There was other people that said the same
I
thing.
just want to be clear that that is not what is happening here.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Neal,
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Olson,
No.
Chisel,
No.
Whittle,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Miss Linich.
No.
You forgot Zittigren.
Hmm?
Did you vote?
I was seconding.
Oh, oh.
Get it? Okay, motion carried. Discussion and possible action on community funding project application for fiscal year '26.
Okay. I'm gonna do my best to try and keep a straight face during this discussion and not point out the irony that the federal government, we're slashing all kinds of federal government spending, and we're about to discuss Congresswoman Hinson's application period for community funding projects to tack on to federal appropriations bills. I'm not gonna point out the irony in that.
But thank you for doing that.
Yeah, so, last week, this is a very quick turnaround. Last week, I participated in a webinar put on by Congresswoman Hinson's staff on community project funding and kind of what they're looking for. They are looking to approve, and I'm using a bit of air quotes, so out of their office, that the Congresswoman would take 15 projects and try to put them into different appropriations bills. And the deadline for this is March 13th. So we don't have a large window to put an application together. So largely wanted council to have this conversation. We've got a number of projects in the works. I've included the guidance document as Dropbox file 008. This is what we were given last week as part of that webinar. The only project that we have in the queue right now that does come to mind, and I say in the queue rather loosely, we've been talking about this building for years, and this police and fire, and I say police, I want to be very clear, all the conversations that have involved any type of police does not mean the station down there, but is more so like along the hallway area here. It doesn't actually touch the police department itself. But several renditions have included adding a few office spaces for the police department. That seems to be one of the projects we have in the works right now that I think fits this potential funding best. But if council certainly has other opinions, this is that time for discussion. And if you want to put forward an action item to have staff submit an application, I would do so before March 13th is the deadline.
How much detail is that application, or is it just stating that this is what you would want to apply for?
So in the packet, there's an online form that you use to fill out. So if you follow the link, I'm just kind of walking through it. First, you got to acknowledge that this is not an application to get funding, but this is an application to be considered for her to try and work on. And I haven't clicked next yet.
Oh, sorry.
I don't want to start that process.
Do we have any idea like how much funding is available out there for this type of thing?
I don't. No,
Not that we would turn down anything, but.
Guidance was very minimal on what, basically it was what types of projects would be eligible, and that was it. Didn't talk funding levels. It said that they would like to see projects that are either already built into a budget or that the local government does expect to undertake regardless of funding. That was what they were looking for, because what they don't want is basically people throwing projects at them that are wish list type materials.
A helpful resource is linked in that background material that you included in the Dropbox, and it's the list of all the previous awarded grants that have gone through Hinson's office. I think that's a helpful place to look for clues as to what kinds of projects have steam in that office, and a lot of wastewater things, and so I'm curious if staff considered our wastewater project as potentially. Anyway, to answer your question, the grant totals are somewhere between $250K and 11 million. Yeah, so, and most of them are more than $1 million. So did staff consider wastewater treatment is my question, or repackaging the Trees Forever grant and submitting that?
Lightly considered the Trees Forever. However, it was actually pointed out during the webinar, and actually was anybody else able, I know the notice was extremely short. It was like less than 24-hour notice. Green infrastructure was a specific question asked, and the staffer very politely moved around that question. I don't think an application like the USDA tree grant that we lost $550,000 in funding from would be a suitable application.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what about stormwater?
Again, depending on the nature of it, if it's green infrastructure, like infiltration basins.
I'm sorry, I say stormwater. I mean our wastewater treatment project.
Wastewater.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
I apologize. I've been using the wrong word the whole time. We're spending a lot of money on wastewater this year. She funds a lot of wastewater grants through this program. Are we considering
No, we
something
certainly
there?
could do that one too. We would kick that, what's that?
Fiber to the home project?
That's another good one.
That's the other,
About that one.
in the background, it said
Yeah.
that you were eligible if your community was smaller than 20,000 people. So I think we would qualify there.
Yeah,
for
that's
fiber.
another good one.
Are we far enough in fiber to do it though? I mean, if we don't know what our,
Oh, we're far enough where we've got bids that we could point out that we are sitting on, trying to secure the financing. Like, yeah, that would be a strong application.
Here's what I think that we ought to ask staff to do, and I'm curious what other council members think. I think given the 10-day timeline that we're working with, what we should do is simply give them vocal direction to identify something that we already have planned as a priority for the upcoming year, and to identify the thing that they think gives us the best chance of actually being a recipient, and run with that. And we don't need to have a meeting to give them a pat on the back for doing that, because we trust them to do it. Basically, if you all identify stormwater or fiber or something
Wastewater.
else, we're
Wastewater.
already gonna, excuse me, thank you so much. I need to get a buzzer up here. And, so yeah, I think you identify what we need to work on. If it's something we're already planning on doing and the federal government, you know, through this program, through Congresswoman Hinson's office would like to help, let's go for it. But yeah, I don't think we need to have a special meeting next week to,
Along those
to do
same
that.
lines that Steve is talking about, I don't want to put a whole lot of work on staff's shoulders, but I mean, is it possible to submit more than one for different projects? And if they prefer one over another, we're still in the making for that
I'd
one?
have to
I
go
know the
back and look at-
timeline is short, but
I know that question was asked, and I'd have to go back and look at, it wasn't a concrete, no, but they didn't like the appearance of it, essentially, is what I remember that takeaway.
like just
You
throwing,
could,
throwing a lot of things at the wall, hoping you get one. You
Yeah.
don't like that idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
I echo what Zittergren is saying. I think that between wastewater, police and fire, and fiber, when you are building the application, you should say what is the strongest application we would have. If there's a way to marry the projects together, that would be great. I think you should title it Government Efficiency and Safety.
Doge.
And go with it from there.
So I did actually have a separate conversation, different staffer than the one that put on this webinar, and I did lean hard into the Doge, or however we pronounce it right now. I said, I've got an idea for you. I've got a deal for you. I said, you know that building next door? I said, how about instead of tacking on, you know, a couple million for this, for the city of Decorah, how about you just
Give us back that
get
land.
out? You relocate, no longer have to maintain that giant facility for minimal staffing. We were trying to figure out what the current unit assigned there. I think it's maybe 12 to 15
I think
people.
it's
Yeah.
27 last I looked up or something
I-
like that. Maybe
I'd
it's not
be-
even that many now.
Yeah, I don't know
That
that
was
it's
2 years
even.
ago when I first put the letter in, it was 27.
Yeah,
but
I was trying to find the information on the Army Reserve website, and it was nearly impossible to figure out well, I was able to figure out what was assigned there. The unit title, it's like the 527
It's like that transportation. reorganized
logistics.
transportation to get
Yeah, it's not
more
even
units.
transportation, period. It's the logistics behind it. So, but anyway, I had that conversation with their staff, and they're like, you know what? That's a great project. Let's talk about that not in relation to this. Because I said, how about I put in, I talked with council, we put an application in that says we don't want funding per se. We just want you out. We want the space. And I know that sounds terrible to say, but that is a huge facility next door. That's an amazing asset. They're just paying utilities and stuff on with no operational value.
In the middle of our town.
Yeah.
Where we need space.
Right. And talked about the overall, council had discussed the ability to have like a campus setting here, where you got a centralized parking lot that you could come into, if that were required, and that becomes the administrative park rec, with the shop in the back, even public works oriented office space over there, engineering office over there. This is your public safety side of the campus. Anyway, I have had that conversation. I talked about, I think, at the work session, that the person I had been working with in the string of contacts through the releasing of the land from the Reserve Center lease had taken the deferred resignation 8-month severance package, sent me an email on that deadline, said your project's being reassigned, have a great day. I reached back out last week and I took a step back, reached out to that individual and I said, hey, I haven't heard anything in 3 weeks. Has it been reassigned? Where are we at? So he has sent me contract language. I forwarded to John for his review as well. But there is still some momentum on the land, just so council's aware of that situation. But yeah, if council's willing to just give verbal direction to staff, we've got a number of projects, and you know, I appreciate you pointing out the fiber project.
That was Randy.
Oh, that was Randy.
Yeah.
You whisper.
My internet sucks.
Because quite honestly, the financing of that has always been the biggest struggle of this part because of state law.
Yes.
Yep.
So
There is action requested, if somebody wants to put it
Oh,
in.
I make a motion that, you need a motion, so I'll make a motion that we let city staff endeavor to find the strongest application possible with current city priorities.
I'll
Sounds good.
second.
Second.
Okay, who seconded this?
I'll give it to Kirsten.
Motion made by Neal, seconded by Olson. Any further discussion?
Just a quick comment. A few weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to end up in Washington, D.C., and if you email ahead of time, your local congressperson will often set up a tour for you of the Capitol building, and it's highly recommended if you have plans to go to D.C., especially those of us who work in a much smaller version of government. It's exciting to see. It's also an opportunity to make some nice connections with people who represent us in D.C. So met a great staffer in Congresswoman Hinson's office, and it was just gratifying, and I guess I'm encouraging you all to do that because you never know when those connections come in handy. So,
Okay. Roll call?
Neal,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Sittergroom,
aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Whittle,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Miscellaneous.
Aye.
Motion carried. Discussion on City Code Section 13.20.030, industrial and nonprofit institution customers.
Okay, I'll give the background, but then Carrie will probably do, honestly, the largest lift of this conversation after the background. So during the conversion that the city clerk's office is going through with the utility billing software, staff found a discrepancy between the rate table that the old software had in city code. So code section 13.20.030 reads, water furnished to an industrial consumer and to a nonprofit institutions for irrigation purposes shall be charged at established rates up to a volume of 20,000 cubic feet. All water furnished in excess of 20,000 cubic feet shall be charged at a quarterly rate of $1.40 per 100 cubic feet. The rate, end of that quote section. The rate table established by City Code 13.20.020 has stepped rates for the first 6,000 cubic feet. And then at that rate says anything beyond 6,000 cubic feet is supposed to be $1.94 per 100 cubic feet. The old software rate table has that change from $1.94 per 100 cubic feet at 2,000 cubic feet to the new $1.40 per 100 cubic feet for all users, regardless of use. So regardless of whether it's irrigation, production, whatever it might be, it's just a rate change. So basically, we need to get your thoughts on, as the new utility billing software is being set up, its rate table will have the code, city code rates as they read, which don't align with the previous rate table in the old software. If council wishes for staff to change that, we have to draft an ordinance that changes that.
What have they been paying?
Yeah, what?
they've been paying that $1.40 per 100 cubic feet after they hit 20,000 cubic feet.
How many accounts do we have that hit that mark on most months?
I was gonna say, and just keep in mind, it's going to affect 3 businesses.
Yeah, that's what I
Industrial businesses, so this isn't like citywide. We're not looking to go back to do anything, we're just wanting to know what your feelings are of how we should approach to fix it.
Do we know how this came in conflict with one another, these two particular sections, like what the history was behind it, how it got to that?
That one section's been in place, I think, since 2006 or 9.
Do we have a sense that given that the old code talked about the irrigation purpose of the cheaper rate, I assume that reflects the fact that if people are using water to irrigate, then we're not degrading our stormwater system? Like, that's why we're charging a lower rate? Is that what's going on?
It shouldn't, because the water rate and the sewer rate are separate. Well, like this, is this better?
That's very good, yeah. That's nice. That's your good side, for sure.
So, we have a separate sewer rate that, we have deduct meters, no, they're not deduct, they're addition meters on the water for the irrigation side.
Basically, if something goes into
Water only.
irrigation, we
Water
measure
only.
it.
Yeah, so we have some, either businesses or even residential customers have separate irrigation meters that don't even have a sewer charge associated with them. And so that's something I would point out is there's no difference in the cost for the city to provide that water
Right.
based on its use. If it's being used for irrigation or consumption or production, it's all the same cost to the city to produce it. And so I don't know why it would be a discount built in just because you're irrigating. You're taking treated water and putting it on the ground.
Carrie, do you know what the effect on, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
Okay,
no,
I was
no,
just
go
gonna
ahead.
ask what the effect on those 3 bills would be. Are we talking hundreds or thousands?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask too, what the difference.
With those 3 businesses, one business is barely gonna notice the difference, the other 2 will notice. It's gonna be an additional around 8,000 a year in revenue. If it was
With both combined.
I
right?
see.
with,
Or all 3 combined.
well, if we did it per the ordinance, as the ordinance states now.
Thank
So
you.
we'd
Where
end up
it
with a
would
total.
be, it would be, they'd be getting charged that $1.94
Right.
instead of the $1.40.
And that would come down to $8,000 extra that we'd be getting into the city,
From those businesses.
from all 3 of them combined, yeah.
I hate surprises, but
Wait
if
a
the
minute,
cost, go ahead.
Clarification. Every business, 8,000?
No.
Thank you,
That's
okay.
Total.
Okay,
That
that's
would
what I
be the
thought you said,
total.
and then,
That would be if they're using water as they are today for the next year, it'd be an increase in revenue across all 3. That would equal about $8,000.
So 2 businesses that are gonna get hit with something close to 4,000, and one that is gonna get a negligible change. I think, is there any way that we can warn them and give them a quarter heads up? Because I think I'd like to do that.
I think, I
Tell
think that
them,
would be only.
tell them you've benefited from a bank error in your favor, we found it, and in 3 months, we're gonna rectify it.
Yeah, that's what we were planning. We didn't want to bring
That's
the
what I think
names
we should do.
forward tonight because we just want to give them the courtesy of giving them a
Is
heads
it-
up before it's
I think that-
public.
I think that's only fair, Steve, that we do that. Give them a heads up that it's coming and why it's been this way before, and why we're changing it.
anybody have, when's the quarter over? When would the quarter be over? So when are we
We
thinking?
bill every month, and so for these, it's split. We have 2 of the companies that are, we just did the billing last week, and so that's how it got brought to service.
I don't know if anybody has an appetite for September 1st, but I do wonder if they've, I don't know the businesses, right, I don't know how big they are, but I assume they've done their budget for the summer, irrigation is the summer thing. I figure it's our mistake, can we just start at September 1? But,
Well, and
What's the quarter?
so to be clear, these aren't just being applied for irrigation purposes.
oh, okay.
That's just why they got charged, because of that old random $1.40 irrigation clause.
Right.
Misinterpretation of the ordinance.
Yep.
So if it costs us that much money to create the clean water, whether they put it on their lawn or into an industrial process, we ought to make sure we're recovering our costs, otherwise other people are subsidizing these businesses. At the same time, we want to make sure that they have plenty of notice. I think, is that enough direction, or do you want us to tell you how many months to give them in terms of notice? We trust you guys on the timing, but I think change it to the new rate.
Is there appetite to get rid of the irrigation piece of it?
Yeah, I think if
instead of giving
Travis,
break.
didn't Travis say that there's no difference in cost for
Right.
our providing the water, whether they put it on their lawn or not?
Correct.
So yeah, I don't think we should charge a separate price. We do charge less for irrigation because when people get that meter, what was that? That was great. When people get that meter, they don't pay the stormwater, and I used it correctly that time, or the wastewater. No, just the wastewater? Shoot. Really? Anyway, I do think that we should give them a heads up and then go to the correct number.
Just for clarification, did you say that you bill these every month? Or
Starting now.
starting
Well,
out?
The new,
Okay.
the
We're
new
not
one.
billing
Right.
every month starting now, but like, this is gonna affect two of them. If we correct the billings, that will increase right now, that need to go out probably this week sometime. The other one, I'm not sure which cycle they're in. And so they're just wondering, if you guys wanna give a date that it gets corrected by, and then we move forward from there, that might be the cleanest.
What date's a good date for you?
Yeah,
Just
I
do
think
it.
you
Do
had
it then.
said September.
That's 7 months. I mean,
Or you want to start at the new fiscal year?
oh yeah,
July
why don't we
1?
start the new fiscal year?
July 1?
1st.
Yep.
Okay.
July 1.
Okay.
So then we'll bring the ordinance back.
We'll bring the ordinance back on the irrigation side.
Yep.
And council's already talked about no other water rate, sewer rate adjustments as of this fiscal year until we get the water meters replaced and see if there's an impact there, correct?
Sounds good.
No changes in water rates this year.
Thanks. Thanks, guys, for catching that.
Carrie-
Otherwise,
Carrie
it's
in her
going great.
office.
It's a lot of work, and everybody's a little burnt out and frazzled, but the information, people are already calling, asking what this new information is that they're getting on their water bills and stuff, and so I think it's gonna be really
I had somebody
beneficial
talk
to our
me, too.
residents.
And the online portal for residents, when you're able to, when that goes live, on what you're able to see for your monthly usage, in the breakdown of what days it was,
Right.
you know, you saw a peak day here and a peak day here. Like, you can track your water usage pretty impressively.
And then when we get the new water meters in, Todd was explaining that if someone uses water overnight when they usually don't, they'll get a heads up, and so they can call the resident right away. So they're not learning 3 months later they've had the water softener running and have a $500 bill.
Yeah, and I know Todd had said too that there's gonna be a lot of information coming
A lot of
out,
information.
so that should help people too.
Yep, so we're just getting things cleaned up. Everything else has been pretty minimal.
Good.
Thank you.
Cool.
We have 2 vacancies on Decorah Human Rights Commission. Any other matters to come before the council?
I forgot to say this in my intro thing, but could we get on the city like a Facebook link to the Strong Towns that then other people can just go share so that we can social media the vote?
You wanna do it on, the website or through social media accounts? 'Cause
I mean, social media is just easy for people to share, right? If we put it on our page, people can just go share
social
and then,
media? Okay,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, please do promote this on social
Yep.
media. If you were looking for nods from the council on that,
Yeah.
you've got them, I think.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved and